Yes, sir. We are live on YouTube, sir. I have shared the link on the chat box, sir.
Okay.
It can be shared to the those who are willing to join. Yes, sir. We are live on YouTube, sir. I have shared the link on the chat box, sir.
Start ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರಾ? ಯಾರು 51 ಹಂಗೆ ನಿಂತ್ಬಿಡ್ತಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರೈಸ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ಬೇಕು ಹೇಳಿ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಬಹಳ ದಿನ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ.
Sir, 64 joining ಇದ್ದಾರೆ sir.
64. Okay, Faiz. Okay.
Yes.
So total 486 registered.
Okay.
Yes, no problem. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿ ಈ ತರ ಲ್ಯಾಪ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ Shall we start, sir?
Okay, start. Get it.
Ma'am, shall we start? Okay. Sir. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. A very warm welcome to everyone. I, Narayan Ganti, is the host for today's webinar. I take this opportunity to welcome all to this one-day state-level webinar on preparation of project report, organized by Rani Chennamma University, PG Department of Commerce, Sangoli Rayana, first grade, Constituent College, Belgavi. I would request Organizing Secretary, Mrs. Asmin Begum Nadab, Assistant Professor, Sangoli Rayana, first grade, Constituent College, Belgavi, to welcome and introduce the distinguished guest and the participant to this webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Faya sir, please unmute madam's.
Yes, tell me. Faya sir, please unmute. Asking ma'am's name. Unmute.
Okay, go ahead, Asmin.
Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Narayan Avare. Good evening to one and all. On behalf of Rani Channamma University, Sangoli Raina First Constituent College, PG Department of Commerce, I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this one-day state level webinar on preparation of project report. It's my proud privilege to welcome Professor M. Ramchandra Gowda sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor and inaugurator of this webinar. Welcome you, sir. I take this opportunity to welcome Professor S. Ramesh sir, Resource Person and Dean, Center for International Programs and Partnerships, PG Center, Mount Carmel College, Autonomous, Bengaluru. Please welcome, sir. I extend my warm welcome to Dr. M. Jayappa sir, Principal, SRFGCC and President of today's function. Please welcome, sir. I extend my warm welcome to CMA Anil Ramdal sir, Vice Principal, SRFGCC, Belagavi. Please welcome, sir. I extend my warm welcome to Narayan Ganti and Hanimesh Nayak, co-organizing secretaries and technical support team, Dr. Fayaz Ahmad Ilkal sir, Department of English, Dr. Jyoti Biradar, Department of Computer Science, Santosh Rajput and Chetan Gange. I extend my warm welcome to all teaching and non-teaching staff, all participants from different places, and my dear students. Lastly, I welcome one and all to this one-day state level webinar on preparation of project report. Now it's my privilege to introduce our Honorable Vice Chancellor and inaugurator of this webinar. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor M. Ramchandra Gowda sir. He is very well-known senior academician in the field of commerce with enormous experience in academics and administration. He got his doctorate degree in marketing management and sir has a rich experience of 34 years. He has begun his career as lecturership at BTL Junior College of Commerce in the year 1986. With consistent progression, sir became Professor of Commerce at Bangalore University in the year 2007. With an instinctive quest for research and innovation, sir has presented more than 75 research articles in national and international seminars and conferences, and sir has authored a number of research publications. He has also authored commendable books on corporate financial management, Indian banking, monetary system, business environment, financial management, and GST. He has successfully guided 13 PhD scholars and 6 MPhil candidates, and other 6 doctoral students are in the pipeline. Along with this impressive academic expertise, sir has been an efficient administrator, served in different capacities as Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management, Bangalore University, member and chairman of BOS, BOE and BOA, Senate and Syndicate, member, Academic Council and President of Indian Commerce Association. His commendable leadership finally culminated him in becoming the registrar of Bangalore City University, and later sir assumed the position of Vice Chancellor of our esteemed university on 4 July 2019. With his knowledge about micro facets of university administration ranging from policy matters to day-to-day functioning, sir is vibrantly leading the university and all faculties towards the promotion of quality-centric teaching, learning and research, and making the higher education equitable and relevant to society at large. Here in this platform, I must mention, under the dynamic leadership of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, we got land for our university, which was pending since last 10 years, and which was also the most awaited dream of RCU family. With this brief introduction, I welcome you, sir. Please, I welcome you, sir. I extend my warm welcome to our principal, Dr. M. Jayappa, sir. After joining Sangoli Raina first grade constituent college, our college is climbing the ladder of success day by day. Before joining Sangoli Raina college, sir was working as principal as in RBA NMS College, Bangalore. He got doctoral degree from Bangalore University and he has published a number of research articles in national and international journals of repute, and also sir has organized many national and international seminars and conferences. Sorry, sir. I'll introduce today's resource person of our webinar, Dr. S. Ramesh, sir. Sir is currently working as Professor and Dean, Center for International Programs and Partnership, PG Center, Mount Carmel Autonomous College. He has successfully guided 24 PhD students and 51 MPhil scholars. He has carried out 3 postdoctoral major research projects funded by UGC and International Labour Organization. He was invited by the US Embassy to make study on the community colleges, and he was also the member of the Indian delegation to Australia for skill-based education. He was a visiting professor at SPS Swiss Business School, Zurich, Switzerland. Sir has published more than 45 research articles. He has been a resource person at more than 200 seminars and conferences. Dr. S. Ramesh sir has authored 15 books in the field of commerce, management, and accounting. He has also organized various national and international conferences. He was the president of Bangalore University Teachers Council of Commerce and Management, currently the executive secretary of Federation of Teachers Council of Commerce and Management in Karnataka, and was the treasurer Peace Quest International, a project funded by Swedish International Development Authority. Sir was a member of the expert committee of KPSC board and was a part of the 5-member high power committee constituted by the government of Karnataka for restructuring commerce and management education. He worked for a collaboration between George Washington University and MSRIM, and also worked for India Study Abroad program between University of Stony Brook, New York, USA, and NIMIS. Sir was a member of the Entrepreneur Committee and Tourism Committee of the Federation of Karnataka Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and was a member of the National Council of Indian Society for Training and Development. He was a member of the NAC Peer Team Committee and a member of Educational Advisory Committee of ASSOCHAM. Sir is a member of the National Executive Committee of the Indian Commerce Association and the chairman of their National Talent Search Examination. He is a consultant to a few companies and a reputed colleges for quality improvement. He was a member of BOE in Bangalore University, Mysore University, Tumkur University, and so many other universities. He was a member of the Academic Council of MS Ramaiah University, CMR University, and Reva University also. And presently, he is the member of Skill Development in Commerce of Bangalore University. With this brief introduction, I welcome you, sir, to this webinar. Please welcome, sir. And I extend my warm welcome to our principal, Dr. M. Jayappa, sir. Please welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. Thank you, one and all. Over to you, Narayan.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a warm welcome and the introduction. Now, may I request Professor M. Ramchandra Gowda Sarji, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Rani Channamma University, Belgavi, to deliver inaugural speech. Over to you, sir.
Sir, left किधर काणुತ್ತೆ सर?
ಏ ನಂದು ಈಗ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ. ಹಲೋ
sir.
ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಗಂಟೆ.
Yes, sir.
So sir will be left because of his traveling. So instead of sir, I say few words. So just call me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Yes. Now, may I request Dr. M. Jayappa Sarji, Principal Sangorena First Grade Constant College, Belgavi, to present introductory speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Narayan Gatti. So good evening, everyone. Respected Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor M. Ramchandra Gowda and today's resource person Dr. S. Ramesh, Dean, Department, Mount Carmel College, Bangalore, Yasmin Begum Nadaf, Coordinator, PG Department of Commerce and Coordinator of this program, and faculties, Anumesh and Narayan Ganti, and our technical support members, especially so Faiz Ahmad, Dr. Jyoti Biradar, Chetan and Santosh Raj, and other faculty members and participants from the different universities. So first of all, I congratulate the PG Department of Commerce come forward to organize this one-day state level webinar on preparation of project report for MCOM and BCOM students. So this project report is part and parcel of the BCOM MCOM students in the curriculum. So this project, before this project will be introduced when the student during his student time visit the various organizations, how the organizations is functioning, different organizations, whether service sector or industry or any other sectors. So how many employees are there, what type of employees are there, what is the total turnover, when established the company, all these things physically visit the company, and they let know the more information about the industries or any organization. Such organizations, all information collect by the student. After collect the information, so student will be prepare their own project. That project can consist of usually 5 chapters. So the first one is introduction, profile of the company, conceptual framework, data analysis and interpretation, and findings, suggestions and conclusions. So these are all usual chapters are there. So in the introduction, the topic or what are the issues we consider or the topic we consider regarding that topic. So the more information they can collected either from the primary data or the secondary data. On that basis, introductory part will be prepared by the student. So then we go to the second chapter can consist of profile of the company. Suppose the candidate or the student will be visit to the any organization, that company, when the company will be established, what is the initial turnover, initial investment of the company, what are the total number of employees in the organization, out of that what is skilled and unskilled employees, and the different sectors of the stages of the organization, top level, middle level and lower level. All these things in detail about the company will be mentioned in the profile of the company. Then conceptual framework, what are the things we can collect from the company, those things we can framework will be done in the third chapters. And on the basis of what are the information or the data we collected either from the primary data or the secondary data, those things we can analyze. The data analysis and interpretation can consist all those things. So after that, on the basis of our analysis, we can find out finding some things. Those findings, what is the findings, what is our suggestions, and what is our conclusions. All these things, details will be entered in that project report. This project report is very essential for our every students in the today's market, either the commerce student or the management students or even other degree students, this project report is very essential in their career. So for this program, so we approach our senior professor, so Dr. S. Ramesh, Dean Mount Carmel College. So he has accepted our invitation and come over as a resource person. So regarding our Dr. Ramesh sir, so no need to explain. Already Yasmin Begum will be introduced in lot. So the Ramesh sir, earlier he was working in Mount Carmel College, Dean in Commerce and Management. After serving 35, 40, 36 years, he retired and continuing as the Dean of Department of Management in the same college, and at the same time visiting faculties for the various universities throughout the country, and he can organize several workshops, national level, international level, and all academic activities. Even today, our commerce and management syllabus come forward up to this level because of his contribution, and many more things are there. So those things will be explained by our coordinator in the earlier way. So I request. I thank everyone. Especially I thank the Commerce PG Department of Commerce and the Department of Commerce, Sangoli Rayana First Grade College, Rani Channamma University. So for giving this opportunity, and now I request our Ramesh sir will be continuing his lecture program, sir. Please, sir. Please continue, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Anba.
So very good evening, everybody, and ellargu namaskara. Esteemed Vice Chancellor and also a good friend, Dr. Ramchandra Gowda. My very good friend, Dr. M. Jayappa, who is the principal. Other learned colleagues who are present here, and also Professor Yasmin, who was very generous in introducing me, and other participant friends and various colleagues from different colleges. Very happy to be here to share some of my random thoughts on research project and how we have to carry out the research project. So
Hello,
it's
sir.
very essential.
Hello. Sir, sorry to interrupt you. You are too close to the camera, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And make it on the left side, sir. Turn your camera on the left side.
Okay.
Your left, sir. Your left.
My left only.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah. So friends, maybe that I thought maybe I'll share with you as to how that we need to kind of approach at least carrying out a project work, and then how to report the findings. So that I have a small presentation. Can I share the screen, please? Please allow me to share the screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm enabling you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So friends, before we start what project report is all about, there is a need for us to understand the research and the research process. As you know, research is knowing more and more about very less and less. So since you studied several subjects as a part of your commerce and management, in every sphere of business activity, there is got to be a problem. Where if you talk about the finance area, you talk about the marketing area, you talk about the HR, you talk about the production operations, any part of business, day in and day out, the business is faced with some problem or the other. But in order to find certain solutions to these problems, there is a need for us to kind of carry out some research. And only that research gives us some data in order to make decision. Because there are three ways of making decision. One is through your own past experience you decide, or based on your gut feeling that you decide. The third, at least very important way in order to make the business decisions is the database decisions. So in business research, what we do is based on the data and research that we make certain decisions. So basically research, it means is knowing more and more about less and less. And what it also does is it provides answers to unanswered questions, and it also provides solutions to unsolved problems. It means only if there is a problem, there is a need for a research. Because, for instance, no, we don't reinvent the wheel. We can't do a research on how to kind of make a wheel because it's already there. The research is already done. So therefore, basically research is you have to find some solution to the problem or some modification to the existing system, or maybe answer certain unanswered questions. So since you studied so many subjects in commerce and management, there is an opportunity for you. You also have studied the research methodology, I guess. So you're going to apply whatever you studied as a part of your research methodology to a business related problem in order to carry out research. So what you have to do is, there are three aspects of research and project work. One is, how do you go about planning your project? Second thing is, how do you execute it? And ultimately, how do you report these findings of your research? So please mind you, as a student or as a researcher, it is very essential that we go step by step in doing research, because research is a very scientific activity. It is not simply a trial and error effort. It's a very scientific and methodic activity. So first thing that we need to really do is choose any area of management or business. So for doing a research, you have to choose a specific area of management, business, or any other at least connected issues to the business. And once you have decided to choose some area, because there are several areas of business, you name it, like marketing or finance or HR or communication or strategy, any different areas of business you have, n number of areas of business. So choose one specific area of business, that whether you want to do a project in finance area or a marketing area or a production area or HR area or a general management area or anything that is related to business. It can be something like even managerial economics is a part of your business. So it can be business communication, it's a part of your business. So any interrelated areas you can choose. That's the first step that you got to choose. And while doing so, I would really suggest you to select an area with which you are very comfortable. Sometimes what happens is that you're very comfortable with certain area of business. Maybe you're very good in marketing, you're very good in finance, you are very good maybe in HRM area. Whichever area you are very comfortable with, such an area you must choose in order to do your project, or even if you're a PhD student, to do your research also, you must choose an area with which you're comfortable. I'm sure that you'll be comfortable with an area where you're specialized, that in MCOM or maybe in an MBA or in any area for that matter, you would have studied certain subjects which you love the most. Some people like marketing the most. Some people like finance area the most. Some people like communication the most. So you must at least select an area with which you're very, very comfortable. That's the first thing that you got to do. And preferably, as I told you, an area where specialization are chosen. And once you have chosen a specific area, let us say a marketing. Even in marketing, there are certain sub-functions of marketing. You need to kind of come down to a minute area. It is product related, it can be price related, it can be distribution related, it can be integrated marketing communication related, it can be customer value creation, it can be relationship marketing, it can be a pricing strategy, it can be a promotion strategy, anything. So come to a minute area, or let us say you've chosen HRM as your area. In that case, you have to choose a smallest area even in HRM. It can be selection and recruitment, it can be motivation, it can be training, it can be compensation related, it can be employee retention, it can be attrition, it can be any area. So come down to a specific area of HR. Or you've chosen finance as your area of project. And even in finance, you have to choose again a small little area. Maybe that you want to choose something on maybe that initial public offering, or a stock market that is primary issue problems, or maybe that you are talking about cash flow issues, or you're talking about a merger, or for instance that you are talking about microfinance, or you're talking about a banking area. You have to choose a small little area even in finance for that matter. Or you have chosen maybe production and operations area also. There are several areas, maybe location of business, or it can be a plant layout, or maybe project management related areas, and maybe production planning and control. Small little area you choose. So first choose a main area, choose a small little area. And having chosen a small little area, let us say you've chosen marketing as your small little area, and you've chosen, let us say, product as your small little area. And when you want to convert this at least into a researchable problem, you should have a research problem. If it is in the product management area, you should have at least researchable problem. Let us assume a nano car. That although Tata's introduced the nano car to provide a very comfortable car for the middle class family, it did not really succeed in the market. Although the price was very, very economical, it was very fuel efficient, and at least all the features, the car did not succeed. So can we make a study of product acceptance for nano car? That can be a researchable problem. You understand? There must be some kind of area where the problem, it has some research aspect, has some problem to it, and we want to study that problem. Or you want to choose, let us say, HRM area. In HRM area, let us say that you want to study something on a study of attrition in Infosys Limited. Although Infosys is a very bigger company, every IT company, in fact, is kind of faced with this problem of attrition. Attrition is people leaving the organization every now and then. So maybe a study of causes for attrition in IT industry with specific reference to Infosys. You want to study. So it's again a research problem area. Or let us assume that you want to choose a problem in finance area. If you want to choose a problem in finance area, let us assume you want to study a study of investor behavior towards initial public offerings. A lot of startups have come up. They want to make an initial public offering, that is, issue shares to the public. And what will be the investor reaction? Some companies are able to attract good investment by selling the shares, but some companies, people have no confidence in such company, they don't buy the shares. Can we make a study on what is the investor behavior towards initial public offerings of these startups? So similarly, it can be something general management area. You want to study something on leadership style. So you can make a study in a particular organization on a study of leadership style and its impact on employee and subordinate relationship. Subordinate and superior relationship. It can be a problem. So please understand that in the first place, you have to have a researchable problem. While selecting a research problem, select a broader area, go to a minute area in that broader area, and convert it into a problem. I'll give you some examples of a problem later on, but for the time being, please understand that you have to have a research problem. And it must be a very feasible problem. And again, having selected problem, you should also relate that to industry. If you say that you want to study attrition, you must study with reference to maybe a company like Infosys or Wipro or some other company that you have to study. Or you want to study a product failure, you must select the product and also relate to a particular company and study that. So two things are essential for a research problem. One thing is the research problem itself, and relate that to study that in relation to a particular industry. That is for the project work I'm saying. So, and while selecting that, you should have the competence to undertake such project. Only when you have comfortable with that particular area. For instance, you want to do some project on artificial intelligence. You may not have adequate knowledge because it's a growing subject now. So artificial intelligence or maybe you want to make a study on knowledge management. These are very new areas on which you may not have a competence. So don't select such projects. Then coordination with guide is also very essential. While selecting a research problem, please consult your guide, and along with the guides, you can select. So what are the factors in selecting that a research problem is? Will you be able to get the information that is required for the research is the first question. Or do you have to travel too long in order to get the information, especially during COVID? One thing you have to understand is you cannot go from place to place, so that also you should bear in mind. And whether that you will be able to complete the project in a shorter duration. Maybe you get about 1 or 2 months to complete your project. Will you be able to kind of do that? And whether this project will contribute substantially to the research is one thing. Whether the scope is wider enough. These are some of the things that you need to kind of understand. Then discuss these ideas with your own guide and others. And when you want to select more research problems, browse the literature. Go to the Google search and say research studies and projects that can be carried on in the area of marketing or HR, anything, that you get a number of topics. Or by generally reading when you're placing your topic in the context, or maybe when you have the purpose of research have to be clear, who is the intended audience, all these questions will have to be very clear. And so browse the net and discuss with your guide, friends, everybody, and see that how you can receive it. These are the COVID times. COVID related, a lot of these problems have arisen. The impact of COVID on the IT industry, that in itself becomes a researchable problem. So like this, select one particular problem. Then does it involve? Maybe discuss these ideas with your colleagues and browse the literature then. So as far as the university is concerned, when you're doing a project, please mind you, what university requires is, as even our principal Professor Jayab was talking about, these are the, at least, the process of research, please mind you, friends, is first selection of a research problem. After selecting a research problem, you have to collect the data by using a questionnaire or an interview schedule. After collecting the data, you have to analyze the data. After analyzing the data, you have to draw at least findings and conclusions. Then you have to write a report on that. So as far as university is concerned, you are required to kind of write this research report in 5 chapters. In the following are the chapters in which you're going to present your project. After selecting a problem, after collecting the data, after analyzing the data, you are going to write the research report in the following 5 chapters. In the first chapter, you have to start with the introduction. So introduction about maybe a subject background. For instance, you have chosen, let us say, nano car as an example. So that you want to study of product acceptance for nano car. In that event, you're going to study a little, at least in the first chapter, in the introductory chapter, you're giving a little introduction to marketing and more, at least, introduction to maybe marketing in automobile industry, and more especially on product failure and product success. So these may be literature in about 10 to 15 pages of little bit of marketing, little bit of maybe product management, little bit on maybe that automobile marketing. You can kind of have some at least basic introduction in about 10 to 15 pages. Then, so in the second chapter, of course, that you have to focus on review of literature. Either you can do that, or you can include that in the second chapter, in the research design chapter itself. These 2 chapters can be merged. In fact, second and in both second chapter, you can have a research design in the second chapter. In review of literature, you have to have a separate chapter if you're at the PhD level, but at the project level, you don't have to have a separate chapter. You can mix it with research design. In the second chapter, research design, you're going to cover the objectives, methodology, and all that. I'll show you what are the details. In the third chapter, you're going to provide the profile of the organization. In the fourth chapter, you're going to analyze the data. And in the last chapter, you're going to have the summary of findings, conclusions, and recommendations. So let us begin with what you should have in the first chapter. In the first chapter, you should include the subject background of the research topic. As I told you, if you're doing a marketing study, you have to give some introduction to marketing, product related. If it is a study on pricing related, you have to give a little bit of marketing, at least, background, and little bit on pricing strategy. Or if you are going to do, let us say, some project on promotion related, little bit of 50% maybe introduction on marketing, another 50% on promotion. Or you want to study on customer value creation, some study you're making. In that case, little about marketing and little about customer value creation, consumer behavior. These issues will have to be covered in the first chapter in about 10 to 15 pages. Please mind. It's a finance related study, as I told you, little bit of finance, and specifically, let's say it's a investor behavior related project, bit of finance, bit on investor, at least, behavior and all this, will have to be as given as introduction. And please mind, in the first chapter, it's very essential. Although this, whatever introduction you can take from some books or articles or somewhere, please mind you have to quote the source at the end of the chapter. You have to give the citation from which book that, maybe that, edition and all that. So you have to give the citation at the end of the page on some aspects that you've taken from certain books. That is most essential in the very first chapter. So anyway, you can ask me questions later on. I'll move on to the second one. Please mind you, in the second chapter, that first chapter I told you is the introduction. It's a marketing project, marketing introduction. If it's a finance project, finance introduction. If it's a HR related, plus of course, the topic related introduction. Both will have subject related, topic related, 50%, about 15 pages you have to provide. Then, the 15 pages I told you is for a MBA or MCOM project report. For a PhD, of course, it's a different thing. Anyway, then design of the study. Second chapter, you have to focus on design. In the design chapter, 1 or 2 lines of introduction you're giving, and you're going to write small paragraphs on all these aspects, all these listed here. That means, first you have to write little on the statement of the problem. So to give one paragraph of what the problem is all about, you have to state the problem. For instance, when I was talking about if you've taken a project on maybe a study of product acceptance for nano car, you have to state the problem. You have to say, although nano car was a very fuel efficient car, very economical price, and it was provided to middle class in order to kind of, for them to be very affordable car for that particular segment with all its efficiency. Still, the product, of course, did not take off in the market. So it is very essential to understand what went wrong with this product. So that's going to be the statement of problem. Or let us say there's attrition in X company. Maybe that, employees are leaving the organization. You want to make a study of attrition at Microsoft. So that means how you're going to state the problem is, although Microsoft is a very great company with its best of the HR strategies, you still find that people do not settle in the organization for a long. There is almost 15-20% attrition in the company. But the company is unable to find out the causes for such attrition, whether it is superior related, where it's strategy related, where it's compensation related, and so on. Therefore, this study. So that's how you're going to state the problem. Or you've taken up a study on finance area. You want to study maybe a investor behavior towards initial public offerings. That means, when shares are issued by the companies, how do these investors react to such public issues? So in there, how you have to state the problem is, you can say, now with the startup India, at least, gaining momentum in our country, a lot of organizations, companies are coming up, and a lot of them are kind of floating shares, issuing shares to the public, making initial public offerings to public in order to raise the capital. Some companies really are able to succeed raising, and there's oversubscription, but in some company there's undersubscription. So it is not known why such a phenomenon exists and what is that the investor is looking for. That's the statement of the problem. Okay, so like this, in your study in the second chapter, this your statement of problem you have to write in one paragraph on what the problem is. That means when you're stating a problem, You're justifying the need for the study. Okay. Then second, at least component in this second chapter is review of previous studies. Here under this head, you have to cover some 10-15 studies previously done on the same thing. So many people have done at least studies on employee attrition, or maybe talking about product failure or anything, whatever subject you have chosen. If you go to the Google search, you get n number of topics on that. And at this end, you have to quote 10 such studies, the name of the author, title of that particular study, what does that study covers briefly, about 10 or 15 such studies you have to state. And at the end, you have to say what is the research gap. That means how your study is going to be different from all these studies. So that you have to state here under the head, maybe a review of previous literature. Then the next thing that you have to have in the second chapter is about the objectives of the study. Any study, will have to have certain objectives. Let us say that, we have taken up a study of attrition, in Microsoft we were talking about. So when you talk about maybe a study of attrition at Microsoft, then you have to say the first objective is to study the HR policies and practices of the company. Second objective is to study the employees' reaction towards the strategies, HR policies and strategies of the company. The third objective is to study the gap between the employee expectations and the strategy and the policies. And the next objective is to study the extent of attrition in the company. And next objective is to study the causes for attrition in the company. So like this, you can have 4 to 5 objectives. If you take let us say, Nanacar as the example, it's a project, at least study that taken up. So you have to say to study the marketing practices of the company. And second objective is to study that the level of product acceptance for this Nanacar. Third objective is to study the gap between the expectations of consumers and the product. And the next objective is to study how that is, maybe to set a certain strategy for the relaunch of the car in order to see that this product is accepted in the market. So like this, any study that you make 4 or 5 objectives at the most you can have, to at least don't have some 10, 15 objectives and all that, it becomes very not manageable. So objectives are to be stated. Then the scope of the study. The scope of the study is, there are 2 things to the scope of the study. You should write a small paragraph on scope of the study in the second chapter. The scope of the study means the geographical coverage of the study. The geographical coverage of the study needs to be at least stated. That is, whether the study is going to be carried out only in Belgaum city, or whether the study is going to be covered for the whole of Karnataka, or whether the study is going to be covered for the whole of India, or whether it's an international market you're going to cover. So one thing is you have to state the geographical limit of your study, and also the functional limit. When you're talking about attrition, are you going to cover compensation related? Are you going to cover about the employee relationship? Are you going to cover about the training aspects? What are the HR aspects you're going to cover in the study? So functional coverage and geographical coverage both must be stated when you're stating the scope of the study. Then you should also state the hypothesis for the study. When you talk about hypothesis is a tentative assumption, the validity of which needs to be tested. You're making guesswork. Maybe that, in the attrition study that I was really talking about just now. So in the attrition study that I was talking about just now, that your hypothesis, people are leaving the organization because the compensation is not adequate. That's your guesswork. Or maybe because superior and subordinate relationship is not good in the organization. So in the hypothesis, please mind you should always be kind of, there must be both 2 variables must always be affected. It should not be mere statement. It should be relational. That means, when you say the leadership style has an impact on attrition. So maybe that, the more the leadership style is free rein, the better is the kind of, people staying back in the organization. Or higher the compensation, higher is the attrition rate. Like this, you should always connect one variable with the other when you're making the hypothesis. You can have some 5 such hypotheses. Depending upon the objectives of study, you can draw the hypothesis. Both null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis, both can be kind of, stated here when you're saying that. Okay, the hypothesis. Then you have to have you have to write about some 5 hypotheses for this particular study based on the objectives. Then you should have some operational definitions. When you're talking about operational definitions, you would have used lot of technical terms in the project, but you have to give the definitions for such technical term. What do you mean by attrition? What do you mean by employee retention? What do you mean by HR policy? Small definitions which you use in the project must be stated. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
The share, of course, the screen sharing is gone. 1 second, I come back. Yeah, you're able to see that now?
Yes, yes, sir. It's starting, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Some people are scribbling something, sir. Please disable it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I get it.
So you have to give small little definitions for this operational definition. Whatever technical term that you used in the project, you must give some small definitions, some 10-15 definitions, please give based on whatever technical terms you used in the title of the study or the objectives or the scope. Give some 10-15 definitions, operational definitions as to what you mean by, at least I told you, attrition in your study, what you mean by employee engagement, whatever technical terms you use, you have to define that. Then the next thing is, you should also state the methodology in a small paragraph. You should state the methodology. Please mind you, as far as the methodology is concerned, there are in social science research that we pursue, only survey method is the method that we use. There are different methods. One is maybe that now we have the survey method, we have the observation method, we also have maybe what's called as the laboratory method. So where that happens in the case of physical sciences, where you kind of talk about in the physics or chemistry or things like that. But in social science research, whether we use an observation method or a survey method. So in the case of a survey method, we use a questionnaire or interview schedule in order to collect the data. In an observation method, we use some observation schedules. Like say you want to observe, this happens in the case of psychological studies, we use the observation method. We observe how the patient is behaving when a drug is administered, or when you show some pictures, how does the patient behave and things like that. So that's observation. But in the case of, generally in the case of social science research, you must say a survey method has been employed in order to collect both the primary and the secondary data. That's what you should state under the head methodology. Then the next component in the second chapter that you need to write a small paragraph again on sampling. As you know, your study, you cannot at least cover all the employees. When you've taken up a study, let us say on attrition itself, you cannot cover all the employees of maybe Microsoft. So you have to have some sample size. So you have to at least pick up some sample. Maybe a question arises. A lot of students ask me, what is the ideal sample? But for your project report, at least if it is employee or market related, you should have some minimum 100. With 20 people, 15 people, you cannot do a research because you cannot have the generalizations with such a small sample. So you should also state what is the sample size here, what is the method of sampling that is employed, and who are your sample respondents. So you have to say here under sample size that out of the total population of some 5,000, maybe that employees in the Microsoft, you have selected only 1% or 0.5%, whatever, and we have selected this number. and we use the random sampling in order to select whatever sample size is. And then you have to say the data is collected from the employees for this particular study. And whether you have to state whether it's only male employees or even female employees, and the age group that you covered and all that must be stated on the sampling plan. Okay. Then the next thing that you have to cover in the second chapter is the tools and techniques for data collection. In order to collect the data, as I've told you in the very beginning itself, there are different tools and techniques available to collect the data. So the tool that you're going to use is either an observation schedule or an interview schedule or a questionnaire. See, the difference between a questionnaire and the interview schedule is, in the case of a questionnaire, when the respondent fills the answers, it becomes a questionnaire. When you yourself ask the question and fill the answers, it becomes an interview schedule. Otherwise, both are a list of questions. There is not much difference. But when you personally ask questions and enter the collect the data and enter the data into the instrument, it becomes an interview schedule. Whereas if the respondent himself fills the data and gives it back to you, it becomes a questionnaire. So whether you use a questionnaire or an interview schedule, and how did you collect the data? Whether it's a telephonic interview or through the email you collected the data, or you conducted a focus group discussion, whatever you did, you must report here. In this small paragraph, you should say a questionnaire was prepared and distributed among all the respondents, and the data was collected, both primary and secondary. Secondary data, you must say, is collected from books, journals, and periodicals, and reports, and so on. So that's what you should state under the head, tools and techniques for data collection. Then the next component you should have in the second chapter is about the limitations of the study. That means if you have faced with any limitations in the study, that means what you did not cover in the study. Maybe in the, I was talking about this attrition study itself. Maybe that you're not covered, let's say, female employees. You should say one of the limitations of our studies, female employees are not covered. Or you're not covered the older generation of employees. You must state here, one of the limitation studies that the older generation people are not covered. Or you have not covered the compensation related issues in the study. You should state that compensation related issues are not covered in the study. Whatever is not covered in the study must be stated under the head limitations. Whatever is covered under the study must be stated in the scope. I repeat, whatever you have covered, both functional aspects and geographical aspects, you must state in the scope study. What is not covered, you must state under the head limitations. Then, the next component you should write is about plan of analysis. That means you must write here what are the statistical techniques that you use to collect the data. That means whether you use some chi-square or whether it's correlation or regression, or whether you use a structured equation modeling. And whatever statistical tools that you use must be stated on the head plan of analysis. You must say the data was collected and tabulated and using maybe SPSS or whatever that, and also that statistical tools such as regression or correlation or chi-square, we have analyzed the data. That's what you should state on the head plan of analysis. Then the last component you should have in the second chapter is on the overview of chapter scheme. That means you must say how you have presented the chapters. You must say that study is presented in the following chapters. The first chapter will cover introduction. Second chapter will cover design. Third chapter will cover profile. Fourth chapter will cover the analysis. Fifth chapter is going to cover the findings and recommendations. That's the way you should state as to how these 5 chapters that you have drawn. So this is about the second chapter. First chapter, mind you, introduction, about 50% on subject, 50% on the specific area of the project. In the second chapter, research design. On all these components, you have to write small paragraphs on each one of them. That's what you should do in the second chapter. First chapter will run to about 15 pages approximately. Second chapter, you may be able to write about some 4 or 5 pages approximately. I don't think you'll be able to do anything more than that. Then, see, this is some of the examples of statement of problems. In a statement of problem, what you should do is it states the existing state of affairs, states what the problem is, explains why the study is necessary, and explains the benefit of study. Let me give you an example of a statement of a problem. in a statement of problem. So this was one of the studies which was conducted where ICICI Prudential, an insurance company, and South India Bank, which is a banking company, they both of them want to merge for certain cross benefits. Because when a banking company offers insurance product, it's called as bank assurance. They wanted to club both banking and insurance business and merge into one company. So the statement of problem, of course, is given like this. The banking activities, of course, that what the statement problem is, you say that by bringing both banking and insurance business together, both the companies want to understand whether there's going to be any cross benefits for them, whether it's going to benefit both banking business and also the insurance business. Therefore, this study, that's the statement of the problem that they have stated here. MBA places, it says Indian banks and both the companies are keen to ascertain the cross benefits of mutual obligations between both the parties through this memorandum of understanding. Okay. Then, so while stating the objectives, please mind you have to use these prefixes to study, to analyze, to ascertain, to understand, to study the policies and practices, to analyze the philosophy of the company regarding maybe the attrition, to ascertain the cross benefits, to understand. So these prefixes you must always use when you are writing the objectives. See, these are examples of objectives. In this banking and insurance company merger, these are the objectives. To ascertain if bank assurance has helped the Indian bank to increase their customer base and customer satisfaction. To find out if bank assurance has been profitable to Indian banks. To analyze the cost benefits of bank assurance. That is when the banking company issues insurance policies, it's called as bank assurance. So these are the three objectives that they had in the study. Even the hypothesis, bank assurance has helped Indian banks in improving banking business. That's one of your assumption, that the hypothesis that they had. So these are some of the examples of hypothesis. In one of study, maybe on say, population influences the number of bank branches in the town. That means higher the population, higher the bank branches. That's one of your hypotheses. You may test. It may be true or it may not be true. Similarly, the null hypothesis for this is population does not influence the number of bank branches. That's a null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. So again, chocolate may cause, the heavy consumption of chocolate may cause pimples. That's one of a hypothesis, one of the study. Salt in soil may affect plant growth. With higher the salt, lesser is the plant growth. That's the hypothesis. So bacterial growth may be affected by temperature. So if the temperature is lower, bacterial growth is more. So that's how the hypothesis stated. So like this, a hypothesis, this is how it is stated. Under the methodology, these are the things that you have to cover. What is the type of study? What is the source of data, whether it's primary data or secondary data you collected? How do you process the data? And what is the tool, whether it's questionnaire or interview schedule? And what are the tools and technique that you use? This is what you're going to do in the methodology. And under the type of the study, whether descriptive, analytical must be stated. Under the heading, these are all the second chapter I have already explained to you. Sources of data, you must say, which is primary or secondary data. So all this, I already explained to you these issues. So then, what is the sample size? All these issues that I have already explained. Sampling techniques, data collection, okay. So, okay, third chapter. So first chapter, 15 pages, both on subject and problem background. And second chapter, at least on all the, so many, issues, you have to write small paragraphs, about 4 or 5 pages approximately. The third chapter must cover the profile of the industry. So as you know, that any study that you are going to make a study in some particular company with reference to a particular company, you have to give the profile of that company. If you are making a study of nano car, you must give the profile of the Tatas, and more especially the nano car, at least in a segment. And or let's say you're making a study of attrition in Microsoft, the profile of the company. In the profile of the company, you must give the history of the company, its management, its products, its competitors, and so on. This profile, you can always get it from their brochure or maybe from their website. You can get the profile of the company. In about 10 or 15 pages, you're going to put the profile. There is no problem. It is always readily available that you can put it as it is about the profile of the company. Then the fourth chapter, you should at least cover the this chapter is on the analysis of the data. So this is the core chapter. As I told you, in the research, you have to select a problem, collect the data, and analyze. In this chapter, you're going to analyze the data that you collected. What you should do is that from each question, you have to reduce that to a table. You have to ask some, say, 20 or some 30 questions in the questionnaire. See, another thing I must also tell you, in a finance-related project, you may not have a questionnaire at all because you're going to maybe use some income statements and balance sheets and draw the at least analysis and report. There you don't need a questionnaire, but even there also you may need a checklist as to what kind of information that you need to collect from the company. You have to make a checklist of the questions. So here, in the analysis of data, whatever questions you ask must be converted into tables. You must convert them into table. And in the fourth chapter, each table, title of the table, explanation, and if possible, a graph for that particular thing. Where every table you don't have to have a graph. From some important tables, you can have a graph and pie charts and different pictorial representation you can keep. And you should put the table, graph, and explanation. And some inference also you must draw. It should also be supported by graphs and charts, as I told you. So let us say that one of the kind of dealer perception for chocolates. It is one of the tables. You're showing kind of companies on one side, parameters on the other side, and you have tabulated the data. That is a favorable distribution strategy. Cadbury some 20% say it's favorable. Nestle is only 9% say it's favorable. Both favorable. So again, so not at least maybe that no response at all, 3%. So like this, you should put a table and explain the table. So in the fourth chapter, every question that you ask in the questionnaire must be reduced to a table. And in the fourth chapter, you have to give maybe title of the table and put the table, graph, and explanation. Maybe you're also giving a graph like graph showing dealer perception for the same table. Maybe, as I told you, all the tables you don't need a graph. You have to be choosy. Your very important ones you have to give the table. And you can use different, not only same kind of bar diagrams. You can have different kind of diagrams, pie charts, and things like that. Okay. Then for the table, there's an explanation. I told you in the analysis chapter, table, explanation, table, graph, explanation. So this is the explanation. The table aims at giving the bird's eye view. 68% of respondents consider distribution to be a regular feature, and 80% feel like this. 55% prefer Nestle's products. So then you have to draw inference. It can be safely assumed that distribution supply are given due emphasis. You're drawing an inference from the table. So table, graph, explanation to the table, and inference. This must be stated very clearly for some 20, 15, some 20, 25 tables. If you have, it is good. This must be a major chunk of your research must be in this chapter because this is a core chapter. If you put introduction some 50 pages and on it's 5 pages, maybe that your project may not be accepted at all. So you have to be very careful and as many tables as possible and as many detailed analysis as possible. So that's all what you do in the fourth chapter, table explanation, and so on. Then the last chapter is on the summary of findings, conclusions, and recommendations. In this chapter, that what you will do is, whatever you had analyzed in the chapter 4, you are given table explanation, those explanations you must summarize in the form of findings here, bulleted. So about some 20, 30 findings. So one of the findings in your car is that the car is not technically sound. That's one of the findings. Or maybe the body of the car is not very safer and secure. That's one of your findings. Or in an attrition study, you find that the boss is too rude. That's the reason why employees are leaving the organization. That's one of your findings. Or the compensation is very low. That's why there is more attrition. That's one of your findings. So like this, in this chapter, whatever you kind of analyze in chapter 4, you must in a summary from bring it here and put that as findings, about some 15 to 20 findings that you must have. And then you should also give a brief conclusion. Even you can you state these findings even objectives. Objective number 1, these are the findings. Objective 2, these are the findings. Objective 3, these are the findings, and so on. Then a brief conclusion you have to give, and after that you have to give you have to give the suggestion. Okay, this chapter can begin with a brief introduction, and each finding a line or a paragraph and bullet it, and then give a brief conclusion in about some half a page conclusion or quarter page. The conclusions cannot be many, it has to be one conclusion generally. Then please give suggestions. Suggestions must be very practical. You should not say the company is unable to sell the car. It must make efforts to sell the car. It can't be a suggestion. You must say what should be the strategy, whether they have to kind of really do direct marketing, go to people and talk about the features of this car, and through automobile dealers they have to promote. What should be the strategy must be stated. Even for attrition study, if the employees are leaving, if the superior subordinate relationship is not good, you should suggest what is to be done, whether attitude and training for the superior can be given, and whether that motivation can be provided to the employees. Whatever has to be done, practically the suggestions are to be very realistic. And please mind you, it must be based on the study. Somewhere, some book you bring a suggestion and paste it here, it does not become a suggestion. So maybe as 15 to 20 suggestions you can kind of make it. So I told you first chapter is about 15 pages of introduction, both subject-related introduction, problem-related introduction. Second chapter, research design, small paragraphs on each one of them, and about some 4-5 pages that you're going to write. Third chapter, profile that you can download from the website or anywhere, brochure, and precise write about the management, its competitors, the products, and whatever about the company in about some 15 pages. Fourth chapter, you have to analyze the data, table, graph, explanation, and inference, and that comes to about some 30 to 40 pages of analysis. And last chapter is summary in about some 5-10 pages. You're going to have the summary findings, conclusions, and recommendations. So it has to be very practical. Once you finish your recommendations also, you should also give the bibliography, both books, maybe journals and websites and all that. But there is a way in which you have to state. You have to state the author first, title of the book. For instance, you're quoting Philip Kotler as one of your bibliography references. You should say Kotler Philip, Marketing Management, 10th edition, then Prentice of India, and whatever year of publication. So there's a way in which you have to give the bibliography. Please consult your guide regarding this. And regarding the other issues regarding the binding, project reports are to be hardbound. It's not spiral bound. Pages are to be serially numbered by computer itself, not by hand. Font size of Roman Times New Roman 12 can be properly used. And this is how the first page of the product, front page of the project looks like. The title of the study, and you say project report submitted in partial fulfillment of the requirements of the university, and the student's name, register number, guide's name, and logo of the university. Don't put the Bangalore University logo. You put your university logo, department of whatever, commerce or whatever, that maybe college name and university name needs to be stated, and also year. This is 21, not 1920. And you have to give the certificate by the guide. So in the next one, you should also give the guide has to certify that this is to certify that so-and-so has carried out the project and my guidance, and he has to sign. So guide certificate needs to be given. And the company certificate, when you're doing a project with the company will also give you a certificate stating you have done a project in such and such a company, that you need to put here in the company certificate. Then you should give the 4th page acknowledgements. You must thank whoever people who helped you in this particular project. Needs to be thanked, your head of principal, head of department, guide, and respondents, company, all of them you have to thank on this page. In the page 5, list of contents with the page numbers, chapter and the sub-contents and the page numbers are to be given in this page. And sixth chapter, you should provide a list of tables and graphs that you use. The name of the table, the page numbers are to be given. And page 7 onwards, the body of the project. The first chapter begins in the 7th page. So these are some of the projects. Of course, to give you some examples of some project on marketing area, you can maybe cover something on consumer engagement, or maybe consumer rejection, consumer patterns. For instance, when you say consumer engagement, how does Facebook continuously engage its customers? By providing something new, something innovative. How does it do it? You want to make a study on that. Consumer rejection, you're talking about Nanocar, how consumers did not accept this project. So you can make a study on that. Or consumption pattern. Maybe that, well, how do consumers, at least what the consumption pattern for a particular product? See, consumers may be using for different users. Company itself may not know. So that you need to kind of stress on. Or competitive advantage. Maybe you want to kind of study something on maybe, who has the competitive advantage, which is Pepsi or Coke, who is better at least in the market in terms of their competitive advantage. Or quality perception. Maybe that, Maruti, Ertiga also is a car which was very good car, did not really pick up in the market. Again, it was relaunched. So you can study a relaunch strategy for Maruti Ertiga. That's another study you can do. Market potential for vaccine. So vaccine, of course, is in at least great demand today, but there's a kind of scarcity of vaccine. So what is the distribution strategy you can study? Market feasibility for new products. Network marketing, you can study. Maybe Walmart is a very good example of network marketing. How do they do that? You can study. Product launch. FedEx, when they started their courier service, nobody thought that a courier service can really flourish like this. So what was the launch strategy? That you can study product positioning. Maybe that Amul chocolate, they say give for someone, how that they use emotional strategies to position a product. So that you can study. Market disruption. Geo itself. Initially, when they came into market, when they introduced free internet. And so much cost was involved. Now they're trying to recover those costs through different marketing strategies. You can study the strategy of Geo. How did they kind of launch this product, and how did they manage to offer free internet to so many people and still not incur a loss? So advertising evaluation, you can do maybe that, whether a particular advertising strategy, a particular company has increased the sales, that you can find out. Post-purchase anxiety, digital marketing you can work on. Or maybe cannibalization is that the company is killing their own products to bring in new product, that you can also kind of study. Market entry strategy you can study. Customer loyalty for a particular product you can study. What is the brand image of a particular company you can study. Customer delight or customer value creation. How do companies create customer value? That you can study. There are many like this. In the area of maybe that, even in the area of, HRM, you can that, non-monetary factors on employee retention, employee perception about performance appraisal, then impact of acquisition, both mergers and acquisition, you can make a study, what is its impact of mentoring on career. That is, in HR, they have a concept called as mentoring, where senior at least employees mentor the juniors. And what is the impact? Its impact on production, you can study. Motivation levels, or maybe on employee commitment, you can make a study on. Organizational image, you can study. Or there is a concept called as glass ceiling. Generally, women are not allowed to grow in the organization. You can study why the problem exists in Indian organizations. Impact of organizational climate in a particular company, you can study. Impact of diversity among employees, you can study. These are all some of the kind of maybe titles you can look at. Or knowledge management. Flexi time is another. Maybe employees are given flexi time. Whenever they want, they can go or work from home, virtual offices. Then a lot of new concepts are coming, like moonlight. Moonlighting is taking up 2 jobs at a time, full-time jobs. How do the people manage that? You can study. Then work-life balance, employee leasing, where companies do not at least recruit the employees. They, through some agent, they lease such employees and bring them to work, and then again they don't need, they give back the leased employees to the same agent who had given them. So moonlighting, employee bench sitting, these are all some of the studies. So lean management practice, and then outplacement. That is, outplacement is when companies have no work, they lease their employees to some of the companies. That's what the concept of outplacement is. You can on HR analytics. So these are some at least topics on finance area also. Investor perception, financial performance, hire purchase, rural insurance, leasing, bill discounting, investment opportunities, car financing, pricing strategies, working capital management, merchant banking, factoring services, a number of titles. What you can do is you go to Google search, n number of topics are available you can work on. So there are a lot of them. Finance and accounting also, that maybe you can work on even accounting area. Maybe what are the practical implications of maybe that IFSR, the International Financial Reporting Standard, and reporting sustainability, fraud prevention, scandals, all this you can study. Even in the insurance area, maybe hazards and reimbursement of depositor priorities, structure of organizations, public awareness. You can do a lot of these things. So friends that have kind of since I was asked to speak only for about 45 minutes, I don't know, I've extended my time. I thought you must be having a lot of questions, and you need a lot of clarifications. So kindly that if you have any questions in any language, you can ask me. Not necessarily in English. Kannadadallu keli em tondre illa. I can always feel comfortable even in answering in Kannada, not a problem. If you have any questions, please, yeah.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. Ramesh sir.
Oh,
ಬಹಳ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬಂತು. ನಮ್ಮ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಬಹಳ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಗಳಿದಾವೆ.
thank you, Jaypa.
ಕೆಲವು ಪಟ್ಟಿ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಕೆಲವು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್, ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಸರ್.
Thank you, Dr. Jaypa. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, can you stop sharing screen, sir? So we can come on screen.
Okay, I'll 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for your informative guidance on preparation of project report. Sir, please stay on screen, sir. The students have some doubts, so they will ask in chat box, sir.
Please,
Okay. Now the platform is open for question and answer. I kindly request to the participant to post your questions in the chat box.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So open that. Okay. Sir, here one question is, sir.
Yeah.
In collecting primary data, it is difficulty because people won't cooperate. So what to do? The primary is better or secondary, sir?
No, actually, that generally depends on the study. Some studies need primary data, some studies need secondary data. If finance related, you can also go through the income statements and secondary what are published data. But in the case of maybe marketing and HR related projects, it's better that primary data needs to be collected somehow through that email or through some personal contacts. It is better, of course, if we don't collect the primary data, it will not add strength to the project. So somehow within the friends, within the family circles and so many, you can somehow try to collect whatever possible at least data.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, next question is, sir. So by doing project report on conceptual basis, sir, is mandatory for hypothesis framing. Which one is more weightage, sir?
Pardon, repeat the question.
Yes, sir. By doing project report on conceptual basis, sir, the hypothesis is mandatory or not, sir? And
see, in social science research, hypothesis is not a must.
Yes,
but
sir.
one thing is, if you have used a hypothesis, the examiner will take you a little more seriously, thinking that you put more efforts.
Yes,
So
sir.
it is always better that you try the hypothesis, test them, because the examiner will know that you know the research methodology much more than the very maybe that the net result of hypothesis is not he is interested in. Exam wants to know whether you know how to at least draw a hypothesis and test it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Here, sir, so in this COVID situation, most of students are facing the data collection, sir.
Yeah.
Sir. So in this COVID-19 situation, how to collect primary data? Here,
What you can do is, you can, if the university permits you, you don't have to do a company related project. You can do a freelance project.
Yes,
For
sir.
instance, You can make a study of attrition in the IT industry, not with a specific company as such. You can do it on the industry, maybe by selecting a few companies and collecting the data from friends and whatever. You have to use the convenience sampling. You have no choice but to use some convenience sampling and collect from whoever is available and do the at this project. So freelance projects, of course, I'm sure the company, the university must permit that during this COVID time, you can do a freelance project.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Again, sir, last one question, sir. Here one of the students asked in chat box, sir, how to select the title for research?
That's a good question that you asked.
Yes, sir.
What you have to do is, first, if you are very sure of the focus of your study, the objectives of your study, then you can phrase the title. I told you two things are very essential. One is what you want to study, one thing. Number two is that whether there is a need for this kind of a study. If the objectives are very clear, that you can kind of give a proper title. Title must reflect what you want to study and where you want to study. That must be very, very clear. So what I could kind of do is you have to consult the guide. The guide will be able to kind of give the title to the study once you say what your intention is. So that depends on the guide and the student, because that you cannot give a very general definition as to how to select the title. But one thing is the title must speak about what you want to study, what is the net result of study, and where you want to study. In the Bangalore city or in a particular company, both must be stated in the title. So what probably that you need any help, that you can always kind of say, if you give me some at least rough examples of how do you want to title, then I can tell you how to title these projects.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, madam. Okay. So once again, students and participants, if you have any questions, you can ask in chat box.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
there is one question. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From issue that sir, is it possible to take problem faced by middle class people relating to personal finance? Yes, you can. You can do that. You can personal finance. You can work on. It's a good area, not a problem.
Yes, sir.
How find the topic for research? Please go to some Google search and ask for some topics on whatever related area you want to do. There are a lot of studies which are already done, and from that you can modify and work on that. So go to the Google search. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
What are the queries, sir? Please answer my query. She's saying Halijol. What's the query? Please put your query. Yeah.
Yes. Who is Mega Halijol? You can put your message, your questions in chat box.
Our question is, sir, the company certificate is mandatory?
No, company certificate may not be mandatory for freelance project, but Dr. Jayapal, you are allowing freelance project. Dr. Jayapal must answer. If it's a freelance project, you don't need a company certificate. Feedback
Sir,
will be posted.
sir, unmute yourself, sir. Yes, now audible, sir.
Last question, whatever. Yeah, I'm still posting my doubt. She's posting. Oh, I forgot her name. How to collect review of literature? Review of literature also same way. If you say particular studies on, let us say, attrition, you go to the Google search, n number of studies will come. You can select out of that. You can go to the Google search, you will find the previous studies already done.
Yes.
Any more? Sir, it should be only of India. You can do international projects also as long as you can get the data, not a problem.
Yes,
with your help only, our student.
You're most welcome to do international project.
Yes,
Maybe you can make a study of impact of COVID on business in India and the United States, or India and China, India and maybe that in other countries. You can do that. Thank you, Sanjay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for addressing all the questions. Once again, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I thank
Yes, sir.
our principal and friend, Dr. Jayappa, and also our esteemed Vice Chancellor, and all of you, all learned colleagues like you that have given me this opportunity to be with you this evening. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now I request Mr. Hanumesh Nayak, sir, co-organizing secretary, to propose vote of thanks. Over to you, Hanumesh Nayak, sir.
Good evening, one and all. On behalf of Rani Chennamma University, Sangoli Rayana First Grade Constituent College, PG Department of Commerce, Belagavi, this is my proud privilege to propose my sincere gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor M. Ramachandra Gowda Sirji, for inaugurating this one-day state level webinar. Thank you, sir. My sincere thanks to Dr. S. Ramesh, Dean PG Department of Management, Mount Carmel College, Autonomous, Bengaluru. Sir, your innovative and informative guidelines for preparation of project report will be very useful for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I feel extremely happy to thank Dr. M. Jayappa, sir, Principal, SRFGC College, for presiding over this webinar. Thank you, sir, for your constant support and motivation to organize this webinar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Anmesh. Thank you, one and all.
I feel happy to thank CMA Anil Ramdutt, sir, Vice Principal, SRFGC College, for his presence and dedicated continuous effort for organizing this webinar. Thank you, sir. I thank Mrs. Yasmin Begum Nadaf, organizing secretary, for her sincere effort for organizing this webinar. Thank you, madam.
I think Kavita is asking again questions, sir. You have not given me solution. Some question, I don't know what a question is. Please tell me, Kavita, what's your question here? Please put it again.
Wait, Anmesh.
Yes, sir.
Kavita, I think that you have some question. Please post it again. Yeah. From
Kavita, once
Medina.
again, post your questions in chat box.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question. Otherwise, I would have answered it. I didn't check that. Yeah.
Yes. No, sir.
Kavita, how to make questionnaire on artificial intelligence in e-commerce? You can, what you have to do is you have to first study some literature on artificial intelligence. And when you study the literature, please list out the variables of this literature. What are the variables that really affect technical terms? And those technical terms are going to be converted into questions. Or alternatively, also go to the Google search and see that there are a lot of research studies which are already conducted on artificial intelligence and robotics. Some model questions, I'm sure, will be available already. You can check that and see that can also be used. That can be done. Or do the literature survey, and from that you draw variables, some 100 variables you draw, that you convert them into questions. I hope I answered your question, Kavita.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Please share.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I thank Mr. Naran Ganti, co-organizing secretary, for his genuine effort for organizing this webinar. Thank you, sir. I extend my thanks to Dr. Fayaz Ahmad Ilkal, sir, Dr. Jyoti Patil, madam, Mr. Santosh Rajput, sir, and Chetan Gangai, sir, for their technical assistance. Thank you, sir. And I thank all the teaching and non-teaching staff, students, and participants who made this state level webinar a grand success. Thank you, one and all.
So thank you, Dr. Jayappa. Can I leave?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir. Thank you.
All the participants listen. Due to some technical problem, we are not unable to send the feedback link. In WhatsApp, in Telegram group, we will send you feedback form link. So kindly fill and get the e-certificate. Soon, feedback link will be available in Telegram group. So kindly cooperate and join in Telegram group. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Thank you, one and all. Yes, sir.